So, what do y'all want to talk about? You're watching HSP on the Give Us a Shot Network. What's going on, Trendsetter? We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. I'm Jeff Martin alongside my tag team partner. You can follow us on this network. Give us a shot. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss 1 second of HSP on the Give Us a Shot Network. Trendsetter, make sure you also check us on all our audio platforms at High Spot Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts and also on iHeart and all podcast platforms. Make sure you check us out on Instagram and on X at High Spot Podcast. Trendsetter, lots to get into today. And even before we start, we get kind of the news that a possible WrestleMania location is in the works. Tony Khan is getting ready for All In a few weeks. But another Khan is getting ready for possible WrestleMania in London in maybe just a few years. What is going on? And of course, Trendsetter, just the news that a possible WrestleMania bid could be in the works for the city of London.
Yeah, we came up with the news too. We had to talk about it. It's the first thing, the main priority we had to talk about right now. It's been talked about in terms of WrestleMania. It's a global event, right? But it's been mainly in the States this whole time. Now the possibility of it going overseas. And I think, honestly, when you look at all the premium live events that happened after WrestleMania 40, it was just a matter of time because you saw that event, you saw them, the crowd, the excitement, the atmosphere around it. I'm not surprised here, but to think that's actually going to happen, honestly, I never thought the day would come here. But it's exciting because it shows the progression of WWE, where they're going, the direction they're going under this new regime, and literally wanting to take it to places that we never thought it would be. The last time a W event was in London was Wembley Stadium SummerSlam. And to think that WrestleMania could be in that same vicinity, not necessarily Wembley Stadium, but just in London, the crowd there, you all know the European crowds are awesome all the time. It's an exciting time, man.
So I think a lot of stuff was in the works as well because it's been like 32 years in the making. And I'm pretty sure that every time that WWE was asked that question in panels and in just different places where media could get that question, it's always been asked. And I think John Cena also talked about getting a WrestleMania in London too. So I think all that started in the last couple of years. But obviously that question has always kind of hit not a nerve, but it's been in there where a lot of media try to answer that question. And when is WrestleMania going to go overseas? Because like you said, it's been a U.S. event. It's been in North America. And now, obviously, with the PLEs, and also not to mention, also AEW seeing those huge numbers for All In the last couple of years, they're probably going to hit over 50,000 people for this year as well. So obviously that was, to me, kind of the barometer, the testing point for WWE, because they had another promotion in AEW who, let's be honest, has trouble selling out arenas here, in the fact that they sometimes don't get even 3,000 people in their arenas, but they get over 50,000 in Wembley. So the call, the passion for wrestling and for an event like WrestleMania, which is, listen, nothing against All In, but for this event, WrestleMania, which is a worldwide phenomenon, the grandest stage of them all, right? For them to get this one is a big deal. And we saw Nick Khan and Triple H fly over to London with Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. And boy, that's a heavy belt, Trendsetter. I'm not going to lie. I mean, they had to prop up his wrist up there because look at that belt, man. It's huge. Thanks for helping me out there with the comedic timing, Trendsetter, leaving me out there in the cold. So I feel like I really had an epic fail there with that comedy. But
wait a minute. I'm letting you continue on. You want me to jump in? The guy complains about me interrupting him all the time. I gave you your moment, Jeff. You dropped the ball, okay? Let's be honest. You dropped the ball there.
Win there. I'm looking for some comedic help, but that's not obviously
part of comedic timing, Jeff, which you absolutely know nothing about, is to let it breathe. And you let me jump in and say something. But again, typical, like always, Jeff wants to play the victim card here. You let me high and dry, but you know what? How many times you have stabbed me in the back too, Jeff? Let's move on here.
I'm just a scapegoat in this whole pond, which is your game, Trendsetter. And of
no,
course,
you're not Jack Perry, Jeff. As much as I hate you, I'm not going to put you at that level. So don't even start there.
So you saw that picture, and the first thing you're saying is, well, what would it be like, though? Where would you put this at? Obviously, the main one would be Wembley, right? This would be, ideally, this is where you want it to be. So that's still in the works. We don't know what's going to happen there, but obviously you'd think that Wembley would be the locale, but they have a good rapport with AEW. That's where they're going to have All Out, at least for the foreseeable future. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Right now, they talked to Sadiq Khan, and he said this is something that's just in the early stages. They're talking about it. Obviously, we know WrestleMania is going to be in Las Vegas coming up. They had 40 in Lincoln Financial, so this would be probably 2 or 3 years down the road. But is it something that would intrigue you? Would you want to go? Because we kind of have a streak going that we've been to the last, my goodness, like 10 plus WrestleManias, right? And so would it be something, because we were saying there's no way we'd go if they had it in Saudi, right? It'd just be like making
no, that's where the record would end, I think. There, but again, as much as
Saudi, but just like the travel stuff is just like not. I mean, it just is not enticing for me.
And not enticing. Listen, you and I have talked about this before, Jeff. This is we call this, or I call it, to a labor of love, right? We love doing this. The traveling is part of the whole gig, right? So you accept it. Whether we're going to independent promotions or we're going to events for AEW, we're going to events now, hopefully for WWE down the road for WrestleMania / SummerSlam, all those things wrapped up in a nice little bow. But it's something that I would love to. Yeah, I would love to go there for WrestleMania. As a fan, it's amazing. It's a little different when you're working it, but ultimately, listen, guys, this is something Jeff and I have always wanted to do. We always want to be a part of it. To me, it's like, yeah, I mean, listen, it's in the works. There are talks being done right now. Nothing's been finalized. It's just literally throwing that pebble in that pond right now where you're seeing the ripples go. And where they go, we'll find out as time goes by. But it's exciting, though, too, because as much as I like them being in the States, hell, I complain going to Los Angeles. It's 5.5, 6 hour flight there, too. But to have an opportunity to go see a WrestleMania in London, not only would be great for us here in the States, but again, you look at the massive crowds. I mean, we talk about the United States, the wrestling towns in the USA, but the atmosphere also where it's global now, pro wrestling all over the world. This is what has been talked about for so long. That's never really been happened and was never really a consideration of taking this to another level. You've heard guys like Triple H, Nick Khan saying you haven't seen anything yet, and this is just a small glimpse of what might happen in the future. It's an exciting future.
Yeah, as much as like I said, we talk about the travel, right? It's about maybe like a 5-hour trip over there. I think we'd have to do it. I mean, London, I mean, it's one of the places where it'd be tough to pretty much deny it, right? It would really be tough to say no. So we most likely would be piqued the curiosity. And I've seen people get excited about this. Obviously, here it's like about a 5-hour difference as well. So it'd probably be early afternoon WrestleMania here in the States, right? So it'd be like instead of a at night thing, it'd be in the afternoon, Sunday 2-night thing. So the way you watch TV now, I don't think that there's that importance to what time it starts to, because a lot of people are watching this late. They don't really go by the ratings and the buys now. They just go by how much revenue they're making. And I think they're going to kill it in London with a WrestleMania there. So it would be it'd be awesome, man. It really would be. It just shows you how WWE continues to grow. And a lot of other stuff came out of it, Trendsetter. And the question that was asked here to me was kind of surprising in Triple H's answer, because from everything that we've read, everything that we heard, going back to the Royal Rumble, where Brock Lesnar was supposed to appear, that was his next date. And then after all that Vince McMahon news came out and Brock Lesnar being kind of implicated in some of the things that we read, we got the assumption that WWE nixed his appearance and that they were waiting for this whole thing to blow over before they would bring Brock Lesnar back. So they kind of stopped mentioning his name. They kind of disassociated themselves with him. We've seen pictures of him at his daughter's meets, at his son's hockey games and stuff like that. But he's been pretty much Brock Lesnar when he's not in WWE. He's been in his farm in Saskatchewan, right? So he's been just doing Brock Lesnar stuff. But then Triple H gets asked the question, is Brock Lesnar going to come back? And then Triple H just says, well, that all depends on Brock Lesnar. It's up to him, which kind of refutes everything that we've heard. You think we're going to see Brock Lesnar anytime soon? And do you think that this whole thing that it's on Brock is just a way to deflect the whole story? To me, I don't think they would. I don't know. I don't know if it's a cop out and he didn't want to answer the whole Vince McMahon thing and why he's doing this, but the fact that it's on Brock, you think it was right for Triple H to do that?
I don't know if it was right. I think it was more of a deflection of the answer of answering the question. Basically, I feel when people are constantly asking about that, and he's been asked that question at other press conferences as well. It's always been the same thing. Brock Lesnar's doing Brock Lesnar things. I think honestly, do we see him anytime soon? Listen, in 2024, who knows? I kind of doubt it. But right now, when you really think about this, and although we still have yet to see again what's going on in the whole situation with Vince McMahon and all of the litigations that are going to happen there, with Brock Lesnar, it hasn't really been mentioned his name around, although there was an association somewhat, which is what nixed the whole situation for the Royal Rumble and all those plans that were kind of predetermined already and they're kind of washed away when all this happened. I do think he will come back. I still don't think it's going to be anytime soon, though. But I think by Triple H answering the way he did, one, he protects himself. Why wouldn't you? He's a smart businessman. Of course, he's going to protect himself by saying that. He's going to make it and deflect and say it's in Brock Lesnar's hands of what he wants to do. When he wants to do something, that they'll be open for business. So I don't know if he really means that, what he says, but if you are looking at it from just him and what he's saying, it is somewhat positive because now it's bringing it into light. It's not like they're not shying away from it. Maybe they're not answering it directly if they want to, but they're not shying away by not wanting to talk about Brock Lesnar. So I think there is the possibility that he could come back, but I don't think it'll be within this year. But ultimately, you can't blame Triple H for answering the way he answered right now. Again, there's still probably some animosity there to a certain degree on both sides. So that's the response you're going to get, basically.
Yeah, I totally believe that we'll see him in 2025. When, I don't know, but we'll see him in 2025. I also do believe that this kind of is like a kayfabe answer.
Yeah.
Because we know Brock's a hired gun. He goes and comes as he pleases. I think he put it in that aspect in that court to where Brock's decision is Brock's decision, which I think is, again, Brock is his own guy.
Yeah.
Brock goes as he pleases. I think that I think that's a kayfabe answer. I really do. Yeah. I think that, I think if they said we can't talk at this time, it's a touchy subject. I think that would have been more of a negative answer. Mm-hmm. And I think this kind of is like a process and just building Brock as a hired assassin. He comes in and goes as he pleases. Because last time we saw Brock pretty much against Cody, right? He put him over. And so I think that if we see a Brock now, though, I think it's a guy that's going to put the younger talent over. Did celebrate his 47th birthday earlier. So I think, while he's still the beast, though, I think that however how many matches he has left, I think it's going to start putting over the younger talent. Started with Cody Rhodes, right? So, but I do see at the end of the day that as this is a positive and that we will see Brock Lesnar in 2025, though. But again, the huge elephant in the room is just what happens with Vince McMahon. How much of this stuff gets out? Is there any more thing that comes out? I know they're in the process of like trying to disclose information from the client Janelle Grant, and there's still litigation going on. So we have to wait and see. But that's a huge factor in whether we see Brock, whether this is it, whether this is just the allegations and stuff. But if Brock gets implemented into any more things, then it could really go into a longer process. But I would say now, if you were to ask me in a betting man, I would say 2025 is when we see Brock. But I think they just got the ball rolling with this answer to the journalist question, which is a good one, though. He got an answer. So good for the journalist. And I think it was a kayfabe answer. So there's a lot of news, man, a lot of news. And I think another thing, too, that we're coming off of is AEW Blood and Guts. So we're going to talk a little Dynamite with you guys here on the HSP podcast on Give a Shot Network. And just your thought of Blood and Guts, because you know what you're going to get. I know a lot of people are posting kind of the teasers on Instagram, and people are like, oh, wait, they're giving this away for free. And yeah, so this is what they've done for the last few years. This has been their signature show in Nashville, Tennessee. We got this version, Team AEW versus The Elite. I'm going to say this. The ratings were in, and they got 786 K for the viewers. 786 was a little bit down, and they got a 0.26 in the 18 to 49 demographic, the key demographic, which everyone targets as the main demo. And listen, am I surprised? No. A lot of people are like, is this a show where they're going to get 1 million? Is this a show where it's going to crack that 1 million barrier? And it didn't. And listen, is it getting better at least as far as storyline wise? Yeah, going into All In, there's a lot of good storylines heading into All In. And I think they're doing a better job storytelling. Execution maybe could use a little bit of work, but I think that they're trying. And I think that the shows, at least the last two, have gotten watchable. But just Blood and Guts in general, not a fan of the chair shot. I don't care how much you think that's a gimmick chair and how much you shave it down. For people to get on here and compare the Cody throwing the chair at AJ from a guy like this close to you, winding up and whacking you, even with a shaved down chair, that's bullcrap, man. I don't know what school you went to or how far you graduated in elementary school. That just makes no sense to me. That is still a shot. You're winding up and you're hitting a metal object, no matter how much shaved down it is. Was not a fan of that. And again, you guys, I don't know, you guys love Darby Allin. CM Punk loves Darby Allin. Darby Allin gets shoved down our throats, I think, in AEW a lot. I don't see it. That's just who I am. But to me, this Blood and Guts, for whatever purposes, just doesn't do anything for me. Just the whole thing. It's like a War Games light, but more blood, I guess. But Blood and Guts just doesn't do anything for me. At least this year it didn't.
You basically said it all in a nutshell. What's the point of me even discussing it, Jeff? But no, I mean, I agree with a lot of things you said, and I hate to admit it though, but it's true. Like, first things first. Let's address the ratings and then the numbers and stuff like that. Listen, for people who think that these numbers are going to turn automatically from one week to the other and do a complete 180, it's kind of naive to think that way. It's going to take time. To Jeff's point too, I feel they are going in a direction that's more beneficial for them too, because before it was really more of just dream matchmaking, I feel. And to the point where, yes, the die hardcores love it, but if you're trying to expand this to a more wider based audience, it's not really going to work that way. Now, if you're just addressing that general demographic where it's just die hardcores, then you've succeeded in terms of what you're going to do, but it doesn't show up in the numbers. Numbers don't lie, unfortunately. That's the truth, right? Can they be manipulated? Yeah, of course they can. But in this scenario, too, you're seeing it for what it is. They are moving in the right direction. Their next biggest event is going to be All In London. And these stories that are being involved to go to London are intriguing, are things that we can sink our teeth into and spend time talking about, which I'm sure we're going to when we start previewing those shows coming up. In terms of Blood and Guts, yes, you're right. It is a War Games light, and it's the same concept. Basically, you're just changing the name. What I didn't like about this is not the fact that they did this on a Dynamite and people were complaining like, oh, you did it for free in comparison to like when Goldberg faced Hulk Hogan in the Georgia Dome for the world title, and man, that could have made so much money. You can't think that way, I think, right now, because you have to just try to draw audience. You have to draw people to want to watch your product as much as possible. Do you have to do all those spots you did to put your talent in danger? Listen, it could be a combination of things. It could be more, the talent wanting to do it because they want to gain more momentum, more for Dynamite and Collision and all these shows leading up to a big event like All In coming up. So kudos to them. You do see the effort there, but in the scenario where you just talked about too, the chair shot that happened on Jack Perry, which people compared it to Tommy Dreamer hitting and looked basically the same thing. Tommy Dreamer hitting Raven over the head when his hands were tied onto the steel cage. Same concept. What I don't, and keeps irritating me too about this as well, is the fact that you go through all this punishment, and what really starts getting to me, annoying me, is the fact that, listen, we understand this is pro wrestling, Jeff. We understand this is fantasy. This is make-believe, whatever you want to call it, right? But are you going to tell me that Jack Perry is going to take a shot like that? As much as you agree with it or not, that's their choice to make. I mean, we've seen it during the Attitude Era too, to a tremendous degree before we learned about CTE, right? If you're going to do that, and then 5 seconds later, he's standing in, again, even more defiant. I'm sorry, you're losing me here. What's the point of it then?
150 pounds.
You're putting somebody's health in jeopardy by doing that, no matter how much you shave down the chair. I get it. But then to do that, and then him to be up in less than a minute as defiant and spitting at Darby Allin and spitting at everybody to have him light himself on fire. I mean, give me a break, man. He should have been unconscious. He should not have been moving one bit. And a lot of people say that's nitpicking, but I think that's just You have to do that, man. You can't be doing these things. And to me, it's kind of an insult of us as fans, as insulting our intelligence. Like, are you kidding me? You're gonna take a chair shot like that, and then all of a sudden, less than a minute later, you're back up on your feet, howling, and just standing like nothing happened. Then what was the point of it? That's what irritates me about the end of that show and how it happened. In terms of how they worked in the storyline, I get it. It's all that it's fun in terms of how they're intermingling. Darby now getting his title shot now for the TNT title. That's going towards All In. I get those things. I just wish the delivery and I wish the execution would be a lot better for these events.
Going back to what you said about the chair shot and him not kind of selling it, don't you think if Matt Jackson was going to accept that match on behalf because he wanted to save Jack, shouldn't Jack have been knocked out? So then, or at least if Jack's going to stay up, shouldn't he be conscious enough to tell Matt, don't accept it. Don't accept it. Would have made him more look like a badass, right?
Yeah.
He's willing to set himself on fire so that they don't lose that match. But then Matt Jackson's there, and then you got Jack just looking, and I don't know. It just would have been more if he would have been more defiant. If he was knocked out, then it would have really made sense for Matt to speak up for him, right? Because he's chair shot. So either way, that little detail to me would have gone a long way in order for that to look better. And listen, I don't care how much I hear people saying he looks like such a badass, or this is a badass moment for Jack Perry, or whatever he does just makes him a badass. He's not a badass. I just can't believe it. He's not believable in the role. Neither are the Bucks. Okada is the only big guy there. Yes, Hangman being part of that, but I don't think he's part of it now because I think there's going to be dissension with Hangman because he didn't follow orders. So I think it's just tough in the roles that these guys are in to be considered any more like a threat. Jack Perry to me is not a threat. I mean, they're just pushing him as this guy, and I don't see it. He took a picture with Drew McIntyre, and you could tell side to side. I mean, who's the wrestler and who's the kid, right? I mean, it's just that's another part too, is putting your wrestlers in roles where you're believable, where you can believe in it, where you're not thinking, okay, this is really just not, no way I can fully get behind that this guy is any kind of ass kicker. Right. So that blood and guts match to me, listen, to me, it kind of gave a little resurgence to the Acclaimed because they kind of needed it because they're a little bit lost in the shuffle. I wasn't too fond of their promo afterwards because how Matt Caster going to talk after getting a mouthful of thumbtacks. Right. And he's able to, have a awesome promo. But okay. But that's another thing too, like the selling. Right. So the Acclaimed, I think, came out. And I noticed something. I know Bryan Danielson is going to be the sentimental favorite, and I know his contract expires really, really soon, relatively soon.
Thank God.
And we know he's going to stick around. So don't even say anything about going back to WWE. You know he's going to stick around. But you notice that the fans love the interaction between Swerve and Hangman Page. I think, too, when I think of Hangman and Swerve, you know what's the first thing I think of? I think of WCW, and I think of Macho Man and Diamond Dallas Page, that rivalry.
Yeah.
That's the first one when I compare Swerve and Hangman. They're kind of going to be, for the history of AEW, they're going to be connected because that's one of their best rivalries I think I've seen between them, and they always have good matches. Now, listen, depending on if you like their style matches, but you can't take anything away. They have a chemistry, and the fans were you could tell the fans love that interaction. Is there any way, a chance that Hangman finds a way to interject himself in that main event?
I believe so. I do. In terms of him being a title contender, I don't think so. I don't think so right away. You know why? But here's the thing. We're going to talk about some good that AEW has done. You brought it up right now. This whole rivalry between Swerve Strickland and Adam Hangman Page, which through most people who were just looking at AEW when these two first squared off in the ring, you thought maybe it was just a one-off. And then you saw when Swerve beat him twice, okay, well, this is it. This is a wrap-up. Now they're moving on, going their separate ways, now going to different arenas, different stories. It's still there. It's still intriguing. Even though Adam has not defeated Swerve Strickland, people still want this. They still like it. And it's more of that organic feel where these two are complete polar opposites. Similar to how you described Macho Man Randy Savage and Diamond Dallas Page. Now, again, we're not comparing these individuals to Swerve Strickland and Adam Hangman Page, but in terms of just something the fans want to see, something the fans are interested in, something that intrigues them. This is it. This is something that's happened naturally, and this is what AEW needs to continually do. Not only just build off of this, because again, Blood and Guts, you said yourself, it helped out the Acclaim a little bit. I mean, I know how you feel about Darby Allin too, but I think it's also pitting him now into a light now going for the TNT title. So it helped him out after the events of this, and Adam Hangman Page in terms of what's going on with the Elite. And you see that, maybe his first step isn't Swerve Strickland. Maybe down the road it's going to be an Okada, because it seems like that story is starting to build up between him and Okada, not seeing eye to eye with each other, coming to blows ever so many times and never happening. So that's something that could be happening down the road too. But that's the intrigue and the interest that I guess I would say, Jeff, you and I as fans, we want to see. And AEW, again, is now only recently doing a good job of doing it. They need to continue that momentum and keep it going. Are they gonna make mistakes? Are they not going to be home runs all the time, like we just talked about right now in terms of trying to dissect Blood and Guts? No, but if certain individuals can come out on the better side of it, that's the step in the right direction for them right now.
So I'll tell you one person that I don't think came out of this any better, and that's Okada, because I just think he continues to be a comedic kind of wrestler. You saw with the staples he took to the finger. I just don't understand what the deal is. I think his wrestling is good enough to get on the American American wrestling fans' good side, and they know who he is. Though this base that they're trying to get knows Okada, so I don't understand what the comedy is. He doesn't need it, and so I think he just stays the same. And I do agree too that who does Hangman Page go off after next? I think Okada, especially, is going to have to deal with the backlash from the Elite after his performance at Blood and Guts. All his tunnel vision was on Swerve, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that Okada and him definitely would be another match, and a good story, because there's a backstory. There has been interaction between Okada and Hangman Page, so I think that works for All In as well. But as far as like who came out better, I don't think Okada comes out better after Blood and Guts too. I just don't know what they're trying to do with Okada, because it's wrestling for itself, especially in AEW, where your wrestling speaks for yourself, should be enough for Okada, and he should get the hell out of the Elite and the hell out of this role.
Yeah, the thing is that you paid that amount of money, and we're not going to disclose the amount of money because, again, it's hearsay, right? In terms of how much he got paid, and him and Mercedes Moné, right? Which I'm sure we'll talk to eventually about Mercedes. But if you're paying that amount of money for an individual to come into your company, the only person that has kind of elevated themselves to a star in that company is Will Ospreay. And Okada, to now be in the situation, the position he's in as a stooge, it just, for somebody like me who has seen Okada, the things he's done in New Japan, and I get it, maybe they're trying to reinvent the wheel here and trying to make people see him in a different light from the comedic standpoint, to somehow make him more relatable, or to kind of make a crossover from obviously him being from New Japan, maybe not a lot of people knowing about him. I don't think it does him a service to do that too. It kind of really, it really just sours the fact that, hey, you even said it yourself too, right? How many times and how many years had gone by now where when we talked about Kenny Omega, for example, and you're like, I want to see the New Japan Pro Wrestling Kenny Omega. I want to see this version. I understand you have to adapt your character as time goes by. As Chris Jericho says, you have to reinvent yourself too. But in terms of what are we doing in terms of reinventing? Are we reinventing ourselves to allow ourselves to elevate to a higher position, or are we just doing it for the sake of doing it? And that's what it feels like what you're doing with Okada, for the mere fact that, yes, maybe he's not going to give you everything you want in terms of in the ring because he is a heel, quote unquote. But this whole thing is just, to me, is just, it makes me shake my head, because if you have a talent like this, Jeff, and this is what you're doing, it makes me question then, how are you going to build stars in the future if you have established stars from overseas that you can't get over in this position? Only one has been successful right now, and that is Will Ospreay.
That is the man who will head into All In and take on MJF in the rematch for now the AEW American Championship, as it was changed from the International Championship that was thrown in the garbage by Maxwell Jacob Friedman. And so that is, you get the rematch right away. So that's where Will Ospreay goes. Yeah, Will Ospreay has been strong in AEW since he's gotten there. I think MJF is good to be back. And listen, man, there are a lot of guys, a lot of people on the injured list, right? Yeah. On the injured list, she comes back. They're getting now a Hikaru Shida, who is taking the heel side now. She moves over to that side. You got the Willow Nightingale or Chris Statlander a rivalry too. So that women's division is kind of deep. And then, of course, you had the interaction between Toni Storm and Mariah May too. So there's a lot of stories heading into All In, and they're doing a good job. So I'm going to give them credit. Not a fan of blood and guts. So the rating is the rating. It's going to be slow process. Do not expect a million to come anytime soon. But are they going to do better in the ratings? Why not? I mean, why not? I'm not wishing anything bad for AEW. And then the Warner Brothers deal, Trendsetter. We don't know where that's going now because obviously they're going to Amazon, and so they lose out. I don't know if they can still try to get it. I think NBA is trying to push TNT out now, so now there's a lot of money now for AEW. But again, Trendsetter, the main thing is, why are you going to give or go above asking price for AEW when they're not in a position to receive any kind of huge pay bump? And as much as you see this partnership as well, and as much as Tony says, oh, the talks are going well, talks are very progressive, and then he's taking shots at WPR because they're sending out different news stories that they've already signed a deal and it's at the same amount, so it's not helping out negotiations. Tony's a little miffed about that. But if you're Tony Khan and you're being realistic, and which I don't know the guy. I mean, I've seen him a little bit, and if he's trying to be realistic, you cannot in any way, shape, or form expect any kind of substantial pay hike. And if it is, more power to you. And WB just doesn't know what the hell they're doing. But they had the layoffs. They laid off 1,000 employees. They're not going to get the NBA. They have this money, but to overspend on something that no one's bidding against. So can AEW actually see a huge bump in their next TV deal? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, like you said, more power to them if they're able to do that. But again, when you're bidding against really, there's no other competition or people going out there to purchase this, all the advantage goes to WB because now, again, they can bring down their asking price in terms of what they agreed upon verbally. As we all know, verbal agreements are not binding. It's one thing I learned from real estate school is the fact that, in this scenario too, you can lower your price because the market dictates in terms of what your price is. And in a scenario like this, where let's be honest, look, guys, we are wanting AEW to be successful. We don't want it to go away. We want it to just continue to build and grow. But let's be honest, it hasn't been, the honeymoon's over it's been over for a really long time. It has not been producing good content. Just recently now as it's starting to do that with stories. But you look at the numbers, they're not producing good enough ratings for the W2 say, you know what, I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for this too. So all the power goes over to them. I don't know what direction this is going to go in. I mean, you listen to Tony Khan too. And like you said, I don't know Tony. You like to believe, he's a smart businessman in terms of what he's doing. But sometimes I feel that as we go and we talk about time and time again, right? Perception is reality. You want to perceive yourself as a star or you want to perceive yourself as an elite company, no pun intended, right? But I think sometimes it also can be a little bit masking where you're being naive or you're kind of really just turning a blind eye in terms of what everything else and what everybody else is saying. And you're just believing your own hype to a certain degree. I'm not trying to say it, but that's what it feels like sometimes when Tony, when he goes on these press conferences or these calls, and you don't have to take shots. You could always be the bigger man. Again, in this business, in terms of pro wrestling too, it's a vicious business as well. People are going to be taking their shots. And hey, if Tony wants to do it, great. But at the same time, you need to focus on yourself and focus on what you're doing and stop worrying about what WWE is doing. They're not the same. They are not the same in any stretch of the imagination. And to compare the two of them is not fair. So I don't know where this is going in terms of the deal. Right now, if I'm on the other side, I'm going to Tony and saying, this is my best offer. Here it is on the table. Take it or leave it. And when you don't really have any other options around you, what can Tony do?
Really, I mean, it's again, they're at no advantageous position right now. So we'll see what happens if there is a deal that happens, which we think will happen, but I just don't see any significant increase in the new deal. So we'll see what happens there. And any kind of partnership or any kind of maybe any working relationship that he said that he would love to do a show with WWE. Yeah, that's not going to happen in anywhere near time. It could just be like a nice way to answer the question. And,
at the end of the day, I hope it does happen, but not anytime soon, as the expression goes, right? Because just both sides are not willing to work with one another.
Not really, no. And especially if Tony believes that they're doing these things, these little things with the PR that's spreading out false info on AEW's business dealings, then a myth Tony is not going to want to work with. There's no trust. Let's just say that. You got to have trust when you do these things.
100%. No trust on either side.
No trust, especially Tony on WWE's side too. So there's that is just maybe a little pipe dream now for the wrestling fans. But yeah, so that's where they're heading into All In.
And just real quick, Jeff, it's a shame too. You know why? Because in this scenario, when we see what TNA is doing with WWE and how it's working on both ends, now TNA is, I think, doing significantly better now that they have associated themselves to a certain degree with WWE. How great would that be if AEW was able to do the same thing? So,
yeah, no, really, it would be something. But again, it's that trust, and obviously, when you have a when you think Tony believes that they're rival with WWE, that they're on the same platform, they're on the same playing field, which they're not. TNA, I believe, kind of recognizes they're not on the same platform. So any kind of business they're dealing with WWE, they're going to be the little brother, right? I don't think AEW can ever see themselves as a little brother. So I think that TNA is a little bit more, they got to do what WWE says. And, as NXT gets ready for the Great American Bash and they're seeing TNA stars on their show, like the Rascals killing it with that 6-man tag team match. As you see, Joe Hendry is going to have his concert at the Great American Bash. It adds more eyes to a product like Slammiversary. Sold out show. Still don't know what the buys did, whatever, but you sold out that arena. You had a lot of people talking about it. We were talking about it. Slammiversary. I think that's the first time I think we really plugged it on the social media stuff. And here's the thing. Joe Hendry had a chance to become the TNA World Champion, and they didn't pull the trigger. And there's a lot of talk that there was a lot of push to get him in that championship role, especially after what he's been doing on NXT. This was the time. It was a six-way for the TNA Championship, and Nick Nemeth won it. Nothing against Nick Nemeth, formerly Dolph Ziggler in WWE. He is their world champion, but to me, it's a lost opportunity because, listen, just like anything, right? You can always second guess it. But if you tell me, hey, here's your chance to put the world title on your guy here that has this mainstream popularity, why not do it? Especially for TNA. Have they been able to prove that they have a substantial track record of long-term storytelling and building like a year-long redemption for Joe Hendry? I know that Josh Alexander is going to be another good bridge match for Joe Hendry, but I would have done it now. What did it hurt not to put the title on Joe Hendry at Slammiversary?
Well, like you said, Jeff, hindsight's always 20/20 in these situations too. When we compare it to, like, for example, Cody Rhodes should have won the title at WrestleMania 39, but when you saw the length of where they were going to go, which a lot of things could have gone wrong, as you see in the documentary on YouTube, right? Completely overrated in that respects. Watching it makes sense because you build more anticipation. You don't always want to give the fans what they want. In this scenario, I'm not comparing it to this. I think with this scenario here, I think, yeah, a lot of people thought he was going to win the title, and I for sure thought that as well in terms of all the momentum he had gotten from all he had done in NXT. But now hearing rumors that, now they want to pit him more over on NXT, give him more exposure, I think that helps him ultimately, that when he does go back to TNA. I mean, let's say he wins a title under the WWE umbrella as a TNA superstar. How interesting would that be, right? And bringing that over to TNA. And then eventually coming to the scenario where, yeah, he'll be the face of TNA by becoming a champion there too. So it just delays it. And listen, we've been victim, Jeff, of constantly under old regime and old times where it was more like, give it a shot, do it now, or we want it now. And talking about not having long-term storylines and weeding this out for as long as possible, right? Because, oh my God, the payoff would be so much better if you did this. Now we're in this scenario where we're actually doing the opposite. Now we're like, oh, you missed an opportunity. You should have done this. Granted, I agree with you. I think it still should have happened. But now looking back on it, as much as, you and I were upset after WrestleMania 39, I'm sure a lot of fans were upset after Slammiversary saying this should have been the moment. If you keep delaying it, and I understand a lot of things can happen that work against what your long-term plan might be, as injuries and things of that nature, right? Hopefully nothing that happens in terms of this scenario. But when you keep holding it and you keep allowing it to go in a certain direction where you didn't anticipate it was going to happen and you can't predict it, it becomes more intriguing for the fans. So I think the ultimate payoff will be there, but it just won't be what we anticipated it to be, which was at Slammiversary.
So obviously you make a great point of what is next for him in NXT. So we'll see what happens there. And then we get ready for the Great American Bash coming up next week on Sci-Fi. So we've reached everything that basically, there's to get to. And now we head to, of course, what I would have started off with if it wasn't for this WrestleMania news, it wasn't for Brock or Blood and Guts. And that is Liv freaking Morgan. Holy crap. Yes, to me, it end the PG era for WWE on Monday night. And I told you, man, and I say this, give me a little cheek over over nudity any day, because that to me just leaves more to the imagination. Liv Morgan, and she brought back the booty jean shorts. I mean, goodness gracious, Liv Morgan was the star. I cannot listen. There's some people that I respect on Twitter that have their opinion, and a lot of people are just wrong on this. I think Liv Morgan, again, I can't stress enough, and I'm not being biased because she looks great in booty jean shorts. She has done a good job in this role. I mean, if you're bitching about her not being believable, like she was really crying or whatever, I mean, you're missing the point. She was wearing booty jean shorts, for God's sakes. Fake tears. What's going on, guys? I mean, please. This is what's wrong with society. This is wrong with IWC Trendsetter. They're more worried about fake tears and just watching, her turn around like 100 times, or I did that night. I mean, Trendsetter. I mean, at the end of the day, did Dominic do the right thing? I mean, I know mommy's mommy. I know mommy's mommy, but Liv, good Lord, Liv.
Yeah, well, if you saw the end result, what mommy did to Dominic after he had done that, then you're like, hey, he made the right choice, right? But
here either or, it's like, it's like,
yeah, he's still a winner. The I can't stand Dominic Mysterio right now. It's the luckiest guy I was gonna say another word, luckiest guy in the face of the world.
Would you? Okay, so listen, when you say that, if you remember where the Dom got like really beaten up with that bamboo, he got caned with those bamboo sticks by Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, right? I mean, he paid for it. I mean, he don't say that for you guys saying that this is luck, whatever. Yeah, it's luck, but hey, he paid his dues, man.
Oh no, what I'm referring to, Jeff, is the character of Dirty Dom right now. He's lucky SOB, man. Look, he's got mommy, and now he's got Liv Morgan going after him, though. But I'm super happy about this. In terms of the booty shorts, again, listen, that thing went viral so much. So for the internet wrestling community that wants to complain about it, go ahead and listen. Hey, listen, you're entitled to your opinion. But I think, like you said, they're missing the point here, because despite the fact that we're focusing on booty shorts, right? And Liv did look really, really good in those booty shorts, I must say.
She looks
we're trying to discuss a storyline that has been many years in the making, in terms of we were wondering how this is going to work, because let's be honest, the star level and the star rise of Rhea Ripley has been amazing. I've never seen this trajectory on any superstar, male or female, in terms of the momentum, because we've seen it since she debuted during the Mae Young Classic, when the inception of that came about, and this evolution of not only her character, but Rhea Ripley as a person. You and I have always talked about it before too on the show, in terms of when, let's use Roman Reigns as an example too. You see him come in with the Shield. He looks like this badass guy. He looks cool, and then he's being controlled. He's being told what to say, what to do. He's not being authentic, and the fans can see it, and it becomes a scenario where he's a polar figure similar to a John Cena, where, listen, we want the Roman Reigns that we want to see, not the Roman Reigns that, as WWE Machine, is packaging for us to watch. And then you see him come back, and now he's the tribal chief, and literally the guy just has that swagger, has that era of confidence about him, because you know what? He knows who he is. Not just as a character, but he knows who he is as a person, his identity. Similar scenario with Rhea Ripley. She tried to figure out who she was, and she just needed to be her, with the volume turned up really high, and now she owns it. She's out there on the microphone doing that strut. Anything she does is just gold, and the fans are eating it up. But here's the thing now. You're thinking, hey, can Dominic do the same thing? by joining the Judgment Day, he found himself. I mean, like you said, right? Prison does a lot of things to a man, and
Oh,
it's completely changed Dominic Mysterio to the man we see now, where he's the epitome of what Eddie Guerrero looks like. The mustache, the mullet. The mullet has more heat probably than Dominic Mysterio. The crowd doesn't want him to talk. He has reached the echelons where he separated himself from his father. He's no longer Rey
oh,
Mysterio's son. He is Dominic Mysterio, Dirty Dom, whatever you want to call him, right? And what I love more about this too is the fact that now we see a character like Liv Morgan, who, for her first title run, people were rooting for her. They wanted her to get an opportunity when she was going after Becky Lynch. Won Money in the Bank. Crowd was cheering. It's the feel good story of the underdog, right? She finally gets it, and then it just didn't work. It just, for whatever reason, it just didn't work. Not due to effort, but it just didn't work. Now we see Liv Morgan figuring it out. She knows who she is.
but figuring out, but with a great storyline too, because yeah, you're right. She beat Ronda Rousey for Money in the Bank. Who's really beat Ronda Rousey, right?
Twice.
She beat her, and that didn't do anything for Liv. I
No.
mean, you gotta say she got a 77 on the 2K, right?
Yeah.
And then 86 for her. But no, but like it's the storyline. Look at the bloodline. Look at these guys. Look what the storyline did to main event Jey Uso. I mean, and then his booking too, whether you like it or not. I mean, look at where he's at. Look at where Sol Sikoa is at. These storylines have made stars, and that's why it's important not only to have good matches, but to have good stories.
Agree with you 100% what you said, but the only thing where I'm interjecting here is that yes, Jeff, you're right. Storylines are important. If you're not in a storyline that's intriguing or interesting or something the fans can be invested in, it doesn't work, which is why, going back to Liv Morgan, that title run didn't work. But when you look at the bloodline, Jey Uso was the only person in that bloodline that probably wasn't positioned in a situation to succeed, in my opinion, was Jimmy, because nobody really cared too much about Jimmy. They're always looking at Jey as being the next one or the breakout star of the bloodline. Look at what Solo's done now, where you can kind of figure out that he's still evolving as well, but he's starting to figure things out in terms of being the new tribal chief for this new bloodline that we're watching. But when you look at Liv Morgan, yes, the story wrote itself in terms of her being injured and being taken out by Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley showing no remorse whatsoever. Now, her coming back, her revenge tour, doing the exact same thing to Rhea Ripley as Rhea did to her, and the crowd turning on it. How hypocritical is the audience, right? Where like Liv is just getting back revenge for what something was done to her, similar to the whole Drew McIntyre situation. But here's the difference, though. Liv needed to show up. She needed to project a different type of character when all this happened when Rhea got injured. And it was up to her to figure it out. Because if not, look, they can set it up for you. But if you don't deliver, it's not going to go anywhere. And Liv did that. And now you see her with the laugh and the booty shorts and just this aura about her now. We use the word aura, right? Magic word.
That like 30 seconds of her backstage. She
Yeah.
was like red. I mean, she had that.
She had that confidence about her that we didn't see before.
And I tell you what, though, if they have Rhea Ripley internally written as a babyface, then if you have compassion for Liv and her revenge tour, and you feel it's justified, they have to have Liv Morgan screw Rhea Ripley with Dom at SummerSlam so that she is fully the heel. Right? That is because right now, to me, it's like maybe 50-45 on the side of Rhea. But you can still see why Liv Morgan is doing this. Even when Mommy came back, we put it out there. Hey, remember Liv was the one that was attacked by Mommy. So she's justified in her revenge, as we all are. But how do you separate it? How do you get everybody to go with Rhea here and see what you have to have Liv screw Rhea here at SummerSlam? It is, to me, the way they have to go. I think Dom is going to turn her back, and I think it begins the whole Finn Balor. We know Finn Balor's behind. He's not an innocent guy.
Finn Balor is fed up. He is fed up with Damian Priest, and he is fed up with Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, too, if we're going to go back, I'm sure we'll discuss a lot of this more when we break down SummerSlam, right? But here's the reality of the situation. When Edge was kicked out of the Judgment Day, the person who replaced him was Finn Balor. And he was the leader for some time because Damian hadn't done really anything in his career in WWE at that point. Neither did Rhea. Finn was the veteran. And for some reason, in my opinion, Damian is overlooking Finn Balor, doesn't really think about him anymore. And Rhea doesn't even consider him even a legitimate member because they don't value his opinion, they don't value his experience. Listen, guys, and that's what happens when you have scenarios in this situation where like ungrateful people. I've given you my wisdom, and this is how you repay me. You're playing the hand that feeds you. And Finn, in this storyline too, if this is what ends up happening too, would have every right to feel and do what he feels is justified to correct these actions that have happened against him in the bloodline.
It's going to suck because
bloodline. I'm thinking about the bloodline. Sorry about the Judgment Day. My fault.
It's going to suck when they break up, the eventual breakup. But the one person I don't want to be affected is Carlito, because I think Carlito has had a tremendous kind of little resurgence here with the faction. His timing has been great, and I just don't want him to be affected by this. I hope, because his comedic time
would be cool. That would be cool.
No, totally not cool. So I hope that whatever happens, though, I think that just don't mess with Carlito, man. His comedy has been great. So it's gonna be a little bittersweet when they do break up. And I think you'll see that breakup at SummerSlam. And I think you'll see like the whole deterioration, the Judgment Day, happen all at once at SummerSlam. That's what I'm looking forward to next week in Cleveland. So Braun Breaker is the number one contender. He'll take on Sami Zayn. We've got the Bayley and Nia Jax. We've got Damian Priest and Gunther, who took it to another level this past Monday night. And then, of course, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, and then Seth Rollins is the guest referee. And so I'm excited about that. So I cannot wait to break down SummerSlam this week with the Trendsetter and give you guys our predictions on that show. It's going to be stupendous. So looking forward to SummerSlam. Monday Night Raw, another good show too. The ratings, again, for SmackDown and Raw have been really good. I just can't believe SmackDown is just like Fox is going to give up on SmackDown like that. I mean, it's crazy that's going to happen, but they'll be on USA in September. So that's where we're at there. And one final thing, Trendsetter, that I want to say before we wrap up too here is, we're talking about Macho Man and Diamond Dallas Page, and we compare it to Swerve and Hangman. There's another one I want to bring up. I'm going to say too, how about Benoit and Sullivan?
Yeah, no, you're right. That was very personal between the two of them. Granted, it was about a woman, but still very personal, because we at that time, it wasn't well known, or not a lot of people knew what happened behind the scenes. Yeah. Him being the booker, him putting him in bad positions, him not selling for Chris Benoit, it being very physical between the two of them. Those were physical fights between the two of those guys. They weren't pulling back any punches or holding back, and really getting themselves really worked up for it too. That to me was the first time I can remember as a fan, Jeff, where this was like, it felt very real. It felt that, hey, this isn't part of the show, and again, all this really started, if I have to be honest, looking back at it, and again, this will be my Tony Khan mind working, where like the whole Brian Pillman scenario where he called him Booker Man and then left WCW started the whole Benoit Sullivan thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, some great feuds that we just talked about there, man. And obviously, it's a great compliment to Swerve and Hangman's their chemistry that they have in the ring, that you get compared to these great feuds in WCW from wrestling past. So, Trendsetter, it's going to be a great week. SummerSlam is upon us. Then we got All In, and then the summer's over. So,
man, what a way to end the summer, though.
Yeah, what a way to end it, man. And listen, we're glad you guys were able to tune in here. We will talk about SmackDown this weekend, and we'll talk about the weekend of WWE in Japan. We'll talk about that as well, and any other stuff that comes out over the weekend. We will wrap up on the weekend show here at HSP. But it's glad to wrap up the week in WWE and AEW and TNA as well. We'll have the wrap up coming up this weekend on SmackDown and everything else in pro wrestling. Trendsetter, great working with you, man. Give us a shot, network, because you can find us. Give us a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a second of HSP on Give Us a Shot Network. And also follow us on all our social media at iSpot Podcasts. And we are on all podcast platforms. So make sure, if you can't watch us, listen to us on there. Trendsetter, close us out as only you can, brother.
Well, that's it, guys. It's over. More to talk about next week. We thank you for listening to this episode of the High Spot Podcast. For my tag team partner, Jeff Martin, I am the Trendsetter, Brian Berga. We are, and for always will be, the Jersey Wreck Crew. And we do this for one reason, guys, and one reason only. We do this for you, the crew.